incident was about to take place that would shake the foundations of the civilized world.
It is time to open your mind. Time to discover your divine self as we navigate this holographic matrix together. Strap in, cosmic family, as we slide through this wormhole of cosmic information together in search of the truth.
The truth. You can't handle the truth.
It's time to go inside the matrix.
Inside the matrix.
With your host, Jimmy Brent.
All right, welcome everybody to Inside the Matrix. We're so happy that you're here with us today, or you're with us in the archive and listening later. Either way, we're happy to have you with us. And once again, before we get started, I always like to thank those of you who have contributed to the show and helped us financially keep the show on the air. We so appreciate you, and especially our good friend, the Florida Chick. She is amazing, and we really appreciate her. Anyway, today's special guest is Kym McNicholas. She's an Emmy Award-winning journalist, formerly of Forbes, and is seen on CNN, Fox News, and has shifted now from journalist to activist. Kym started The Way to My Heart after covering a story in which she was not satisfied with the ending. The story began with travel around the world over the last 5 years to 10 countries and more than 24 states to cover, as a journalist, the FDA clearance process and global commercialization of what some told her could be a game-changing device in unblocking arteries. During her journey, Kym observed thousands of hours of procedures in which vascular specialists used multiple methods to unblock arteries in legs and heart. She interviewed hundreds of doctors and patients and met with dozens of medical device makers, as well as hospital and office-based lab ambulatory surgery center administrators. Through that experience, she discovered many heart attacks, strokes, and amputations are preventable. A big problem is that innovation in healthcare is moving at the speed of light, and patients, as well as doctors, are quickly falling behind. That's when she decided to bridge the gap by educating, engaging, and empowering patients to take their health care into their own hands. And Kym's life purpose is saving life and limb. Oh my gosh, Kym, that's so amazing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Wow. Yeah, it's so interesting hearing someone else say it. I'm almost even brought to tears hearing it because immediately all of the last 5 years just comes into my mind like a film. It's just, there's been so many ups and downs and really scary moments. And I feel so blessed with the opportunity to be able to take everything I know and I've learned over the years and actually do something about it. And every single day, actually see change being made and making a difference in these people's lives. So I've never heard anyone actually say it, kind of reflect it back to me. So that was a really emotional moment, actually.
Oh, that's awesome. And, you have a big heart, so that shows through in what you do. And we so appreciate that. And that's why we're excited to have you here today, and so that you can share your story and share what you know with our listeners, because this is not an unusual type of situation. With the diets that we have, which are generally pretty terrible, most of us have issues, cardiovascular issues, whether we know it or not. And a lot of the food that we have is actually, clogging up our systems, our body. And so this is an exciting thing, and I know I'm very personally interested in this. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of all of it, though, I want you to take a few minutes, if you would, please, and go back and give our listeners a feel for where you came from, how you were raised, what kind of family you were in. Were they supportive? Were they not? And then, bring us up to current date. And you can, go into as much detail or not as much as you like, but give our listeners a kind of a feel for you.
If you would have told me this is where I would be right now, back when I was in high school making that decision about where I wanted to go to college and what I wanted to do, I wouldn't believe you. When I was in high school, it's interesting though, because now that I'm thinking about it, when I was in high school, I was very shy. I would have never imagined myself in broadcasting. I always thought that would be amazing, but I used to hide out in the dark room in high school and pretend to be, what do you call it when you reveal the pictures? I was processing pictures that I was taking.
Oh,
And
okay.
I would
Developing pictures.
developing pictures.
Yeah,
Goodness. It's been so long. I was so shy. I would barely even talk to people. I remember even when I was younger, I would bring candy to school just so I would have some sort of conversation point to talk to people. Oh, do you want a piece of candy?
Oh,
It was sad. But when I got into high school, my brother was on the wrestling team, and he knew I was very caring about others, really good at taking care of him and my younger brother. And so he asked if I would be the manager of his wrestling team because the young woman that was doing it at the time was more interested in finding a boyfriend versus actually helping to care for the team. And I realized that during that time that these wrestlers would get hurt and they needed a Band-Aid. They needed their wrists wrapped before they would get back out on the mat. And so I took some first aid classes, and I committed the last 3 years of my high school career to helping out the wrestling team, the football team, the basketball team, all of the above. I even got a Letterman's jacket for my efforts in first aid and getting people back on the field. I was the first person in I don't even know if anywhere else offers it, but our school board thought it was very important to give me a letter for my efforts and getting people back on the field.
Oh, that's great.
So I thought when I was going to college, I would actually maybe become a trainer for the San Francisco 49ers. So I went to Sacramento State University, where I heard that they were pulling the people from to become a trainer. So I thought, wow, this is really great. So I went to Sacramento State, set out on that effort. And when I got up there for orientation, my mom thought it would be a really good idea for me to take a communications course to get over my fear of public speaking, to overcome my shyness. And we walked into the communications building, and who would have thought? I mean, what are the chances we would run into the dean of the entire communication studies department?
No accidents.
Took me under his wing. I was the only undergrad to be allowed in an upperclassman class communications course.
Wow.
And the person next to me was a commentator for the local radio station, and she was looking for an intern. So I thought, well, I'm just going to keep moving with this whole thing. I don't want to get into broadcast or anything, but I love sports. I was really good at sports. So I started interning, and I met the captain of one of the local college football teams. It was a junior college nearby. And I got to know all of the players. And so when their radio announcer got sick, their school radio announcer, for the state championship game, he was like, Kym, you know all the players, you know the game. Why don't you do it? And from that moment forward, I was like, I want to be a sports journalist. This is so cool. I found my voice through the microphone. Because in that moment, as you know, you don't have people commenting right away. They're not in front of you judging you. And so suddenly I felt freer to share what I knew. And I was really passionate about it. So that's really where it began. But when I got out of college and I thought I would move in that direction, I realized that it was tough for women to get into sports broadcasting. And I got an opportunity to become an associate writer for a brand new TV station in Florida, Central Florida News 13. And we got to be a part of the evolution of a brand new station for an entire 2 months in Orlando. Recent graduate, Disney, Universal Studios, so much fun. It was great. And I was there for 1.5 years, and I really, really enjoyed it. But I got homesick, so I moved home back to the San Francisco Bay Area. And I ended up getting an opportunity to do something that I would have never imagined. Business news. I became one of the first web-centric business and technology video journalists for a company called On24 for financial news. Video on the internet in 1999.
Wow, that was cutting edge at that point.
I couldn't even tell you what the Dow and the NASDAQ were, and I had to be reporting on it. So it was like a crash course. And when the CEO of Salesforce.com, before it even became what it is today, when Mark Benioff, the founder and CEO, is walking down the hallway to interview with me, this little pedunk who didn't know anything about technology, and he had to teach me a thing or two before the interview. It was just amazing. It was such a great opportunity. And so that evolved into, realizing that I wasn't going to let what I didn't know and had never done before get in the way of what I wanted to do and what I could do. And so I just kept pushing the limits. And I thought, gosh, I want to be now the Maria Bartiromo of, over on the NYSE. Like, when she's done, I want her job.
Wow.
So I just started thinking about it and dreaming about it. The next thing I know, I get a call from a TV recruiter who said, "Hi, you don't know me, but one of your friends sent me a few video clips, and I know I should have contacted you, but, well, I hope you don't mind. I sent those clips to someone that is looking for someone just like you. For an energy news opportunity, you would be the Maria Bartiromo of energy news."
Wow.
No joke. On the energy trading floor. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm really good at this, like creating stuff. What's going on?
Yeah.
I just dream it, and it is. This is crazy. Look at this. And so the funny part about it is when I went there, they actually told me that I was a little too young, that it wasn't really the right fit. And I thought, I got on the plane on the way back and I thought, you've got to be kidding me. No. Like, this opportunity has to be mine because I dreamed it. It is.
Yeah.
It's there. Like, it's mine. How could it not be? What can I do? So I came home and I thought, well, what do they need right now? And I thought about it. And since they were just starting out with this new show, I realized that they did not have a database. They couldn't have had a database of all of the different publicly traded energy companies, the publicists for them, the analysts who covered the stock, people who could be their clients, etc. And by the time I was done, I had a list of 1,000 contacts.
Wow.
And I stayed up for 72 hours and I sent this off to the news director. Wasn't even 5 minutes later, and he called me and he said, I don't know what to say. I hired someone literally a month ago to do what you're doing, and she is on line number 10. You have nearly 1,000. How is this possible? Can you be here Monday?
Especially at that time, the internet wasn't even that,
right?
that filled up at that point.
I am so glad that you appreciate that.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. We were talking bulletin boards and stuff back then, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I don't even know how I did it back then. I have no idea. They did not have these lists available. Right. It was like going on to Yahoo Finance and one by one.
Wow.
But I got that job. I ended up doing it. I ended up moving there to Tulsa, Oklahoma within 3 days of getting, he's like, can you be here Monday? Sure, I'll be there Monday. And they told me that they weren't going to give me that Maria Bartiromo style job, that it was going to go to someone older and whatever. Well, chances, had it that girl just happened to be late, and she couldn't be there for 2 weeks. So what did I do? I stepped in when they needed me and so the news director calls me in the day before she's supposed to arrive. And he said, honestly, I didn't tell her anything specifically about the job, except this or that. So he said, we're actually going to split it between you two, and you two are sharing the office. And I was blown away. And still, she's one of my best friends. And if she's listening right now, she'll now find out for the first time in 20 years.
What happened? Yeah.
But she and I are the best of friends, and she's amazing. She was such a blessing. She actually restored my faith and taught me a lot about trusting women in business and sending the elevator down and really helping one another, because I had been burned by another woman that I'm all about helping everybody. And I tried to help another woman in a previous job, and she took all of my ideas, presented them, and got the position. And so I really felt coming into this that I was going to hide everything. And she was the most wonderful person to restore my faith. And it's just changed my life ever since, because I'm also part of the Girls in Tech, the global organization. I'm their MC every year, have been for the past 5 years. So I'm, fast forward, I'm not sure, if you want me to continue on this track.
Oh, yeah, this is great. I'm really enjoying this, because you are such an innovator. And to come, I'm old enough to remember those days, and I was, into computers, starting in the mid to late 80s. And that served me well, because at that time there weren't that many people that were really kind of well versed in that, and there wasn't a lot of software available. It was just it was pretty rudimentary. But then even in the 90s, though, things are beginning to develop software wise, but the internet was in its infancy, and it really was not developed at all. And for you to be able to, do what you did at that point is pretty darn amazing to me. So, yeah, I want to hear the whole step by step.
It's so interesting, because I almost feel like all of the main part of my career, especially on TV, it's almost as if it didn't happen because it's not on the internet. The internet is such a different thing. It's a whole different animal than it was.
I mean, and the quality of video back then, compared to what it is now, is so drastically different, right? I mean, you would look at those videos now and go, wish we had an HD camera then.
Right? Oh, yeah. I would be embarrassed to even, just in case people are familiar with TV, a lot of my resume reels are on beta from way back when.
That was the standard back
so long
then.
Ago. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. So that was a job. My last job we discussed was Energy News Live, and that was TV on the internet as well. It was the most amazing. I didn't know anything about energy. So I want this to be inspiring to people, that you don't let what you don't know and have never done before get in the way of doing something amazing, because we're all smart. We can learn along the way. Just say yes and figure out how to get it done.
Fake it till you make it.
Right? One of the young women I mentor, anywhere between a dozen and 15 women every year between the ages of 13 and 24. And one of the women I just met with today, I put her up for a job, a social media job. And I showed her the qualifications. I said, this is the only time you should look at those. Now I want you to just focus on getting the job, because I know every one of those, you may not be able to do those now, but I guarantee you that by day one of starting that job, you will. So, because I was not qualified for so many, especially the job after, Energy News Live, that was, whether it was the NYSE and the Dow, or understanding power, gas, oil, NGLs, or what they call natural gas liquids, and the movement of those energy markets, the dailies, the futures. Oh, my Lord.
That's a lot.
It was a lot. But then I decided, they moved me out to Sacramento to cover this huge energy crisis caused by deregulation in California. And after that job was over, the contract ended. After about a year and a half, the show just went away. They decided not to renew it. And I told my agent at the time, I said, I feel like doing sports again. I think it's about time in my career. I feel like it'll be fun. He said, oh, what? You've got to be kidding me. You have no experience doing sports.
So?
And I said, right? That's exactly what I said. I was like, well, you and I debate over the A's and the Yanks all the time. I'm like your go-to girl during baseball season, and we debate back and forth. who else can you do that with? And he said, well, I have other young women, Miss USA, and she's one of my clients and she's into sports. And I said, what are you saying? I'm not a Miss USA. I'm not pretty enough. Like, I don't understand.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I know it was really hard to hear, but it actually motivated me. And I thought, gosh, how can I get a sports job? And at that point in my career, I was throwing darts because the contract was ending. I was living in an apartment. I needed to make money. And I had called a local TV station that it was Channel 10, ABC in Sacramento. And the news director had agreed to see me because one of his reporters had interviewed me months before that about being an expert in energy, and they needed an expert opinion on that. Right. And so he remembered me. So he said, oh, sure, I'll meet with you. And I initially had told him that I really thought their morning show could use a business reporter because I grew up in the Bay Area and every channel had a business reporter in the morning, but in Sacramento, they did not. And so I thought I would be perfect for that with my background. But I knew from doing a little homework that the news director was a huge sports fan.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought, gosh, how can I be doing sports today so I can go in and tell him I'm doing sports and get him to think of me as a sports person? So I go on the internet. And once again, this is like the year 2000. So still early stages.
Very early, yep.
And podcasting was just beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a podcasting network. Remember when podcasting networks were really big?
Oh, yeah.
And so they wanted all kinds of people to start shows on these podcasting networks. And there was this women's podcasting network that actually was looking for pitches. And so I pitched them a women's sports show. And they loved it. They thought it was great. I did a 10-minute little reel interviewing one of my friends that was on ESPN's X Games, and I sent it in. They're like, great, let's do it. When are we going to start? They sent me a microphone, ready to go. And I did that the day before I was supposed to go into this meeting with this news director.
Oh.
So the meeting was at noon. I parked in the parking lot at 11:50, and I just sat in the car, and I waited till 12 o'clock on the dot. So I would walk in. I mean, I'm such a nut. I walked in literally at noon. So they would call him, and it would be about 12 noon and 30 seconds in. So it was kind of on time, but, maybe not. So that finally when he would come up, it would be like 12:02. So I could apologize for being late when I was really on time.
Oh, my God. Can you hold that thought, Kym? We are
sure.
Right up against the break, and I can't wait to hear the rest of this story, too. This is great. Everybody, you're listening to Inside the Matrix with our special guest, Kym McNicholas. So stick around with us. We'll be right back in just a little bit. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Matrix with our special guest, Kym McNicholas. So before the break, Kym, you were telling us, and we're all on the edge of our seats trying to figure out how that, when you came into there at noon at your appointment, how that worked out. So let us know.
So it was noon. I had a meeting with the news director for this station. I told him that I wanted to pitch him a morning business news reporter position, but I had another thing in mind. So when he finally showed up at the front desk to come get me and bring me back to his office, I said, oh my gosh, Ron, I'm so sorry. I'm late. I had this meeting with this exec producer for my new show, and it's this sports show for women. And honestly, if you can imagine me babbling, and I think you can.
He lit up, I bet.
I babbled about this show and all these guests and what I had lined up. all my passionate excitement for it all the way to his office. When I went to sit down, I said, "Oh my gosh, Ron, I haven't stopped. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't be talking about sports. I should be talking about business because I don't want to waste your time. So I want to pitch to you this business thing and whatever." And he walked right into it. Within 30 seconds, he said, "Okay, Kym, I don't care about this business stuff, just to be frank. Now, tell me a little bit more about sports." And I looked at him with this weird look that was completely made up, of course. "I'm sorry, what, Ron? Huh? You want to talk about sports? But what does sports have to do with a business news reporter position or any position here?" And he said, "Well, we just lost our backup sports anchor. It was a woman. She went off to ESPN. And so we just happened to have another role available. So would you audition for me?"
Wow.
Absolutely
Perfect.
unheard of in the top 20 market to have an audition with no sports reel to become a backup sports anchor for that, which meant as well that I would get training from top sports anchors in the business. And I said, "Of course." So that was 2 weeks out. And I had never read a teleprompter before. Not for a job. I'd done it for fun in college and a few times putting together a resume reel. Well, you need to be able to read a teleprompter to do an audition.
Yep.
So I came up with an audition script and I called a station that I interned for. But I also had a little bit of a method to my madness. I thought, well, what else can I create? So I called up my former mentor at the station who was an anchor there. And I said, and this was in the Bay Area, it was a very small TV station, no affiliation, but it's still, they had their own news programming and everything. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Gosh, Ed, I need to read this prompter. I have this sports audition, top 20 market, really exciting." Well, there was a morning show position open, which is why I was like, maybe they'll see me as this really great on-air personality and hire me for the morning show position.
Nice.
So I go in there, and of course, it was just as I had imagined. Ed recorded me, and he showed the tape to his news director. And the news director called me the next day, and he said, "Hey, Kym, not sure if you remember me, but Ed showed me this tape of you practicing. What's this deal with this job in Sacramento you're going for, et cetera, et cetera." And I said, "Oh, it's this sports anchor position." And he said, "Well, let me tell you, that's an amazing reel. And if you accept the job today, I'm going to fire our current sports anchor."
Wow. Wow.
So I was in shock because I loved their sports anchor. Just as a person, he's a good human. He's amazing. I guess it was just they needed a different look and feel, and all the other sports desks had all men. So they wanted to do just something different. So it was nothing against him. It was just that they wanted something different to help boost their ratings. Mm-hmm. And they hired me. I became the first female, not only sports anchor, but sports director in the San Francisco Bay Area with absolutely no experience.
The creative mind.
And it was so successful. I ended up getting my own racing show, and that gave me some great experience. I did sideline reporting for the Pac-12, which was exciting for football. Sure. So, and this is all having never done it before. So really keeping with the theme that don't let what you don't know and have never done before get in the way of doing something great. Sometimes what you don't know can be your greatest asset. And that is actually what ended up getting me into, this was crazy, but I ended up running what I helped turn into the world's largest startup competition with Sir Richard Branson from Virgin, Sir
Wow.
Richard Branson as our anchor judge. And I know, right? It was amazing. I'd never done anything like that before. I had gone on to, in my career, to become a morning anchor, and then ended up working for Forbes magazine, and on and got back into the world of technology. And through that experience, I met some really amazing entrepreneurs. And those entrepreneurs were all into kiteboarding, and they wanted to take their kiteboarding to a whole new level. And since they were having great conversations about technology, they wanted to bring the next generation of entrepreneurs into their little circle and teach them kiteboarding, and maybe even invest a pool of money into those companies. And so they decided to start what was called the Extreme Tech Challenge. And they came to me just at first asking me for help writing press releases and getting some media attention. But I also was an MC for a lot of events, technology events. And the ringleader of the whole thing came to one of my events and said, well, not only do we love having you helping us with media, but we want you to MC the semifinals at the world's largest technology show, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. And then that would be the top 25, and then take the top, 10 from there, or top 3 from there or something, and go on to MC the event on Sir Richard Branson's private island in the British Virgin Islands.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds like fun. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
All expense paid trip and hanging out with Richard Branson. This is great. I got really involved in it, and started showing up for all of their conference calls, because if I'm going to MC this major event, I want to know everything.
Sure.
And I contributed so much. One day they called me and said, we want you to now run this. You have all these great ideas. And I said, no. I can't do this. I'm a journalist. Are you kidding me? I have no experience in running events and managing entrepreneurs and running a startup competition. There's no way. And that's
sure you can.
right. But that was that moment. You've heard me mention it a million times now already in the last, 90 minutes, that they actually said to me, don't let what you don't know and have never done before get in the way of doing something great. And what you don't know in this case is actually going to be your greatest asset, because we don't want a cookie cutter approach to this particular competition. We want something new. We want something different. If we hired someone with experience, we would get the same old. And
Exactly.
We want something new and fresh. And so within 3 years, we had more than 5,000 companies apply all over the world. And we turned it into, at the time, what became the world's largest startup competition. And it was amazing not having any experience, and then turning it into something incredible. And through that journey, I ended up discovering that healthcare innovation was literally where it was at. And that was what was next. So I decided at that point, a friend of mine from long ago owned a finance company, and he wanted to sponsor a technology show on the radio. And so he asked me, it was good timing for me. And I said, yeah, I really do. But I want to focus a lot on healthcare innovation, because I think it's a really big deal. And that's where I ended up interviewing someone that I had met back in the 90s, he and his wife, when he was drawing lasers on a napkin in a bar. Never discount those crazies in the bar. I just have to tell you.
Those napkin drawings have found their way into some amazing places.
They really have. I'm not kidding. You never know where people in your past are going to become relevant in your future. Mm-hmm. I was literally a hostess in a restaurant, and this guy who would come in every night, sit at the bar with his scotch and draw lasers, that he was going to be the secret to me finding my life's purpose.
Wow.
And I ended up getting, he would Facebook message me every once in a while. And one day he just messaged me and he says, "Hey, Kym, do you know what I'm doing right now?" And I said, "Oh, no, I don't." He says, "Well, check your email." And he sent me a ticket to fly down to San Diego to see what they were doing. And they were creating a laser that unblocks arteries.
Wow.
And it's the technology that you unknowingly are familiar with. An excimer laser is what revolutionized LASIK eye surgery because it's considered a cool laser and it's very precise. And so if any one of your listeners has had LASIK surgery or known anyone, they likely used an excimer laser. And they're taking that same technology and they're unblocking arteries because it's a cool laser, it's very precise, and it does what's called photochemical ablation. It basically vaporizes the plaque in its path and
That's
leaves
incredible.
nothing behind. And so it was revolutionary. And people told me, like, this is the biggest deal. This is going to be the biggest game changer in treating blocked arteries, which is the number one killer. Cardiovascular disease. What is it? Plaque buildup in your arteries. And you don't even see it coming is the problem. Symptoms are so minor until that point.
And it just creeps up over years. It's not something that happens overnight.
No, it's literally a lifetime of buildup, which is why this is my plight, to make sure that advanced testing is done sooner on everyone. If it's the number one killer, it's likely that most people have it. So I think it's a good bet that if you test most people in their 30s and 40s, there's going to be a significant amount of plaque buildup, enough to trigger a conversation between you and your doctor to where you have the option at that point to make critical lifestyle changes that can change the course of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up interviewing this CEO of this company for my radio show. And I said, gosh, when I started getting into this broadcast business, yes, it was fun doing sports. And, I kind of wanted to get into sports, but I realized that there was something more I thought I could do, which was to make documentaries that reflect issues that affect the community. I always kind of imagined at some point, maybe in retirement, that I would make these documentaries. And I thought, why wait till retirement? Why not now? I have enough saved up. I think this is a huge opportunity. I actually, this is really bad, but in my whole idea of I love investigative reporting.
Mm-hmm.
I actually I kind of believed that there were a lot of technologies out there that shouldn't be, that I thought the FDA was a little too easy on letting technologies get approved. And so I wanted to cover this and document this FDA study from start to finish on camera. I wanted to be in every single case, travel around with the company, and be able to report anything I wanted. You can imagine telling a CEO this, right? Oh, I just want to report everything and anything, any mishaps, but you just have to give me permission to just run whatever I see.
Oh, no, we don't want any negative press. Don't tell us that.
Right? But you've heard my history and my frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, in this moment, did not have any doubt in my mind that this is what was right. So I went home and I thought, well, what is the worst? He's going to say no. So I said, hey, Dean, I want to document your FDA study from start to finish on camera, travel with you everywhere, get every moment, every case, the ups, the downs, whatever. I want to document on camera, and I want to be able to say and do and put out anything I want, as long as it didn't break any HIPAA laws. And, here's the kicker. And I want you to pay for my expenses.
Yeah, that too.
And he said yes.
Oh, wow.
And not only did he say yes, but he extended it to not only include the start to finish of that study, but included global commercialization.
And distribution and all that.
Yep. I traveled to more than 24 states. I traveled to about a dozen countries, and I watched this technology, as well as every other technology, being used to unblock arteries in the legs. What happens in an FDA study for these technologies is they typically, if their ultimate goal is to treat those arteries in the heart, they don't want to start in the heart. They want the path of least, you've heard resistance. I say the path of least regulation.
Yeah.
And that's in the legs. If they can prove it works in the legs, they can get clearance in the legs, then it's a lot easier to then go for the heart. It's also a lot safer.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to go straight for those arteries that really matter, right?
Yeah, that
right
makes
away.
perfect sense. Sure.
What was interesting is that this particular device had a 94% success rate in its FDA study and no adverse events. It was unheard of. The only adverse events that I caught on film in all of the hundreds of hours of documentation of this study were with other devices that they were very clear as to the type of patient that they would need for this study. And if a patient didn't fit the criteria and they were on the table, they didn't use this device, they used other devices. It's just part of the whole process. So I had the opportunity to see all of these other devices working. And some of the other devices, they would, you would just be horrified with the things that I documented on film. Several of them are actually on a website I created called mydabralaserstory.com, which shares my entire story from start to finish covering this company. Everything I saw, videos, you have to have a little bit of a strong stomach on some of them. But yeah, it was pretty remarkable to be a part of this experience. It was also it was horrifying. The things that I was learning. One of the greatest lessons I learned was that different doctors have different tools, different techniques, and different philosophies, different standard protocols that dictate how they treat the same thing, which is blocked arteries.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
This one was catalyst number one for me to start thinking of changing my life's direction and devoting it towards saving life and limb and sharing what I know. I was at a large university hospital, very well-known university hospital, and I was getting ready to document a case. The inventor of the technology was talking to the doctor, and the doctor, I heard him say, "No, sorry, we can't treat this patient." And the inventor says, "Why? I don't understand. Look at my phone. See this case? We just witnessed this same exact artery, almost identical 100% blockages. And we were able to take this laser right through it with ease. No, it's not an indication for this laser. The laser was not, what's called the common femoral artery was not part of the study. But if a doctor determined that the laser was right and could do it, he could go ahead. And in fact, a doctor had done it the week before. Now, every patient as part of this study was destined for amputation. The part of the criteria was no other device would work. They tried everything available, and this was the last hope. Next step was amputation. So every person agreed to be a part of this study because they're like, well, it's better than amputation. I'll take my chances here with this laser.
You bet.
And in this case, at this large university hospital, the doctor said, nope, sorry. Yeah, I'm sure it'll work. I've seen it work. It's great. But standard teaching protocols at our hospital, this is no joke, dictate that if we can't place a stent in a particular vessel, we are not allowed to treat it.
Oh, that is insane.
So immediately that woman who was already under was sent straight to the vascular surgeon. She did not know that 90 minutes away in a small office-based lab, there was a doctor with this same experimental technology that had just saved another person's leg from amputation the week before.
Oh,
this is
heartbreaking.
happening everywhere. I just got numbers from this doctor. I apologize, I can't be specific because they're releasing a report.
No, that's understandable.
On this. But in one particular state in which this one practice is operating, they went and looked at Medicare data, and they discovered that hospitals near them had anywhere between a 20% and 40% amputation rate versus his facility that had a 1.2% amputation rate, in which they couldn't do anything for the patient and they had to refer them to a hospital for amputation. Now,
that's so great. Kym, we're running up against a break once again. I hate to stop you there because I want to hear more about this. And it's just crazy that, health is not at the top of the list in these circumstances. But anyway, we're going to continue this. We're going to continue talking to Kym in just a little bit. So stick around with us on Inside the Matrix. We're going to take a short pause. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Matrix with our special guest, Kym McNicholas. We're having a very interesting conversation about health in general and specifically cardiovascular issues. Now, this year has proven to be a really bizarre year in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. But the good part is that so many things are being revealed to us. We have intense corruption in the political world and the financial world. Everything from, child trafficking, human trafficking in general, all these things are coming out. And as well as that, we have coming out things that Kym's talking about, the innovations in healthcare. And I'm hoping, and I'm sure Kym is too, that this is going to lead the way to much better things in the future, because we have been so highly controlled and manipulated by all of these so-called organizations, that ostensibly have our best health in mind, but they actually don't. These are mostly political and financial organizations. And I'm talking about like the AMA, and I'm talking about the CDC and the WHO and all of these organizations that, their PR people will tell you that they do these wonderful things, but we're seeing right now in our face that it's not that way at all. And so it's time for human beings in the world to really expand their consciousness and wake up to what is really happening. And of course, anybody who's listened to this show for any length of time, you realize that that's where we're coming from. We want to empower people with knowledge. We want them to expand their understanding of the world in general, and specifically things that involve them directly in their life, anything from financial business things to health issues and so on and so on. But anyway, Kym, really enjoying what you're saying here, because people don't always get to hear the inside story of what happens, especially with innovative people. We know the story of somebody like Nikola Tesla back in the day. He developed all these amazing things, and then, of course, was immediately shut down because the money people at the time decided that there was more profit in other areas. So it's a huge problem and still there, but we continue to try and educate people and to try and increase their understanding of the possibilities. So please continue.
And I think before the break, we were talking about a study that one of the doctors in our network had done in looking at hospitals in one particular state, which we found out was representative across the U.S., that this one area in particular, the hospitals had very high amputation rates. And what was interesting comparatively to these small office-based labs, and what was interesting is that the people with what's called peripheral artery disease, which is the blocked arteries in the legs, 3 in 5 people who have a heart attack already have plaque buildup in their legs. And that's called peripheral artery disease. So if a doctor would just feel your leg pulses at every single one of your appointments, you might know if you're at risk for a heart attack, stroke, or, as we were talking about, amputations. Just a little tip for you. But with this particular study, so 20 to 40%, amputation rate inside these hospitals for people with peripheral artery disease or PAD. And the patients weren't even classified as having critical limb threatening ischemia, meaning it's the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst blockage that you could potentially have, and your foot's pretty much going to fall off. Like, they're really, like, it has to be amputated, right?
Yeah.
They didn't even have that. Their limbs were literally, the doctors in these office-based labs nearby had people who had critical limb threatening ischemia, and their amputation rates were at 1.2%. So most of these patients, the doctors literally would go in with a wire and poke around, maybe try a balloon and go, I've hit the knee, I can't get any further, let's just amputate.
Oh, God,
like, the
insane.
disease had barely even gone to their foot. It was to see these numbers, it was just disturbing. And this is happening everywhere. And so one of our goals is to really change the paradigm that people, when they choose a doctor, they go to the U.S. News and World Report and all of these other sites that, focus on credentials and peer-reviewed papers and studies. And they say, well, my doctor's the chief of cardiology, and so he's the best. And what do you know? He knows better.
Yeah.
They're the ones amputating. They're the ones with the least skill. And let me give you a little tip. The ones who are chief of cardiology, I'm going to get hate mail for this, but the ones that are the chief of cardiology are actually not necessarily the best practitioners. They're the best speakers and the best fundraisers.
There you go.
So we want to change the paradigm and get people to not just look at credentials, but look at proven skill. Not just reviews from other patients, because every person's experience is different, and you don't know by reading someone else's review as to their medical history and all that jazz. You just don't know. And I've seen on some of these doctors, these doctors' reviews that are amputating, and the people, are writing, it's really great. Yeah, he had to amputate, but he was the nicest guy and he saved my life and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, really? No. Someone else could have not only saved your life, but also your limb. So you have to ask the right questions. You have to do your research on what are the new cutting edge tools and techniques that are available. And this is even more relevant, what are the newest minimally invasive options? Just like, for example, for women, you can have an invasive hysterectomy or you can have a minimally invasive hysterectomy. If you're having your hip replaced, you can have a very invasive hip replacement, or you can have a minimally invasive hip replacement. If you are, for example, with my dad, so this is interesting. All of the 5 years that I spent following this one company around and watching them unblock arteries in the legs, but also going to conferences where I learned about arteries being blocked in the hearts. A year ago, April, my dad started experiencing chest pain. What he thought, it must be heartburn. whatever. And I said, well, let's just go to urgent care. And he said, well, they'll probably just give me Prilosec and send me home. I said, just hold on. Went in there, and the doctor, of course, is listening to my dad talking about, and I'm going to apologize, sorry, Dad, ahead of time. He's talking about burping and this and that and whatever and relieving the pressure. And I said, Dad, 6 months ago, you had, I believe it was AFib, and he had a procedure for his electrical system. I said, honestly, I think you really should get an EKG. And the doctor said, I'm really sorry, he's on Medicare, and I don't really have a diagnosis to substantiate ordering an EKG because he's showing signs of heartburn, talking about burping. And look, his cholesterol is normal. Look, his basic lipid panel, LDL, HDLs, look normal. And I said, well, Doc, you realize that more than 50% of people who suffer a heart attack have normal cholesterol in a basic lipid panel?
Oh, you didn't like to hear that, I bet.
Not at all. I said, actually, I don't care whether Medicare covers it. I want an EKG. I will pay for it out of pocket. Got the EKG. Lo and behold, there was an abnormality. Went ahead and they did. Beyond that is, and I want to tell people, don't just go for a regular stress test, go for the nuclear stress test. They inject a special fluid and they can really see what's going on. And they said, oh, shoot, yeah, we think that there's some sort of blockage. So at that point, I was away on a business trip. And my dad calls and he says, yeah, they discovered that there's a blockage and they have a cancellation for tomorrow. And they're going to throw me on the table tomorrow. And they'll go in and do an angiogram, which is under X-ray and with contrast fluid pumping in. They can really visually see the arteries, exactly where the blockage is. And if they see something, they'll just fix it right then and there. And I said, absolutely not. They're not just going to throw you on the table and use whatever tools that they have. And I said, you need to have the doctor call me. So the doctor called me. And I was with the inventor, actually, of the laser at the time, and we're in the car, and I have it on speakerphone. And the doctor's just going on and on about how critical it is to get him on the table and how great this angiogram is and how great this doctor is that's going to treat him. And we don't even know this doctor. We don't get to meet this doctor. My dad is a faceless body on a table with some random interventional cardiologist that is just pumping these guys through all day long.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think so. Not happening with my dad. That might be standard hospital protocol, which it was, but my dad's he's going to be anything but standard. I said, Doc, so I actually want a CT scan of my dad's coronary arteries before we put him on the table so that we can have a productive and satisfying conversation about exactly where the blockage is and what tools you have in your armamentarium to treat him. What are the go-to tools? What is the brand of stent? What is the brand of balloon? And what sort of atherectomy device? This is a great word for you, especially with everyone who's a vascular patient. Atherectomy device. That means it's a device that physically removes the plaque from the arteries. You've heard of roto-rooting?
Yeah.
Well, there are a variety of different tools that you can use. And I've watched all of them used, and I certainly had a preference as to what I wanted to be used on my dad, if at all.
Mm-hmm.
And especially also for the legs, doesn't matter for the heart. The heart needs high pressure of balloon inflation. But with your legs, if anyone out there has peripheral artery disease and they say they're going to go into the legs and they're going to do what's called angioplasty, which is the balloon over the wire, and they inflate the balloon, you ask for low pressure so that it causes less trauma. Just FYI. So, but for my dad with his heart, the doctor says, oh no, those CT scans don't do anything. I would have to call the insurance company and convince them that it's worthwhile. And it's really not, because we're going to have to do the angiogram anyway. And I said, no, we're going to do, how about, Doc, a 256 slice CT scan. The inventor of that other technology was like, tell him you want a 256 slice CT scan. I was like, I have no idea what that is, but sure, I'll tell him.
The doctor's going to go, uh-oh, she knows what she's talking about.
Oh, he did. He paused and he says, oh, yeah, no, that's really good. That'll show 3D modeling of the heart. Yeah, that's a really good idea. So we go in and get that done. Oh my gosh, it is the coolest thing ever to see 3D modeling. You know exactly where the blockage is. You could see all the way around the arteries. We had a great discussion as to what stents he had, which ones my dad would prefer. My dad had I wanted that gold standard of stents. So he actually had it. And I was glad that I was able to say I wanted that one. We had a discussion as to how many stents were going to be used. And the doctor said, well, maybe we'll use 5, and we want to do this, and we want to do that artery, and we want to do that artery. And I said, but doc, I'm looking at the same image you are, and there's only one artery at 95% blockage. It probably would be another 5 to 10 years before his other arteries that are at like 70% would need redone. Oh, but we, better to be safe than sorry. And I said, doc, you're just doing that to make more money. Oh no, that's a misnomer. We just do what's best for the patient.
Yeah, right.
I said, doc, have you heard of what's called a CPT code? Doc, when you grab a box that has a device in it, there's a little sticker on there, and you take that sticker off for every item you use, and you place it on a special little piece of paper that you hand over to billing. The more stickers, the better, doc, right? Oh, well, yeah, we're conservative anyway, and, we probably will end up with one stent. He called me in the middle of the procedure. He's like, yeah, we're just going to use one stent. So it's really important, and I felt so blessed to have had this experience to be able to have these conversations, and that's really what helped me to evolve what I'm doing right now with my nonprofit. It's called The Way to My Heart. We educate, engage, and empower patients to take their healthcare into their own hands, and I am doing, in particular, what I was able to do for my dad, I want to give to everybody else in this world. Everybody who wants what I was able to do for my dad, I want them to have that opportunity. Everyone deserves a better quality of life. So I help them prepare for their appointments. I even show up for them during their appointments to help create a productive and satisfying conversation where we can play good cop, bad cop. And a lot of times, if you've ever been in, we've all been in appointments where they give you some sort of bad news, and the only thing you focus on is just that one thing. You don't hear anything else the doctor says. You don't ask any of the questions that you need to ask. And you get out of there and you have all these questions. You don't remember half of what was said. Well, now you have an advocate in the room and someone who's going to be on top of it for you. And then we help to follow up with you after your appointment. And we discuss your diagnosis, your treatment options. We help you to create a plan and strategize around your compliance with what the doctor ordered, including lifestyle modifications, diet, smoking cessation, exercise, whatever it is, stress reduction. I believe you had our stress reduction coach, Coach Susan Davis, on with SusanPerformance.com. Also, I believe you had Dr. Adrienne Hines on, she's our functional medicine practitioner. And I have to say, you have really a great judge of character, because with both of those, they're game changing in what they do. And especially with Dr. Adrienne Hines as well, she was able to teach me about getting to the heart of heart disease. Because my dad's doctor, when I asked him and I said, hey, doctor, so why does he have heart disease? I mean, maybe his parents had it, but, what really causes it? How can we get a handle on this? He said, oh, we really don't know what causes heart disease. And there's just genetics and maybe some diet and exercise. It's really easy. Hard to know with your dad, who's pretty much in shape and doesn't have too bad of a diet. Dr. Adrienne Hines changed the course of his life and the course of what we're doing, because she taught me that heart disease comes from, and data actually confirms what she's saying, is that it really stems from, yes, you can have some poor genetics, but also damage to your arteries.
Wow.
It's the artery damage that triggers that inflammatory response of your body to grab the cholesterol and the fats to try and patch up your vessels.
That makes so much sense. And people don't realize that is a safety reaction of your body to do that. And that makes a huge amount of sense.
It really does. And so we're able to actually help our patients to get to the root cause of what's damaging their arteries. And we give them the right questions to ask their doctor. We give them the blood test to request. And if their doctor won't do it, we give them the power by giving them the resources, the websites, to go and order their own blood work.
So what is your website? Let's get that out there. We'll do it again near the end of the show, but I want people to be able to look at that while we're on the air here.
It's called thewaytomyheart.org.
Thewaytomyheart.org. Okay. So everybody out there, write that down, check it out. And it's, isn't it amazing that we all need a health advocate that's educated, because we can't trust our own doctors to find out what's best for us? I mean, not every doctor is like that, of course, but so many of them are just following, all the rules that are set out for them by all, whatever their governing body is, and their hospital that they're affiliated with, all these different things, standard protocols. These are all safe things for them to do to keep out of the court system, to keep out of, getting in trouble for doing something, all these terrible things that impinge upon our health because they're trying to defend themselves, either with the insurance companies, with these governing bodies or whatever. I mean, everything is so backward and messed up. And so what you're doing is such a valuable asset for people to have, knowing that there's someone very knowledgeable about their issue that's actually going to help them make a decision that benefits them, and not the insurance company, not the hospital, and not the doctor.
And the number one piece of pushback that I always get is, why would I believe you over my doctor? And that's a tough question to answer. I'm not limited by a textbook. I have more experience than what's in my one lab. I have observed thousands of hours of these procedures in which doctors unblocked arteries. I've seen dozens of these doctors and their approaches, how it's done in multiple hospitals in Italy versus London versus the Netherlands. Oh, you got to hear this one. So everyone, and I apologize if this is a little political, but there's a big push in our country, and especially on the millennial end, for social health care. I have experienced social health care in so many different countries, not only from me being treated in Australia, but then, and the mishaps that happened with that, but then in watching and working with patients around the world, from Canada to the UK and Scotland. We have multiple patients, and I call them friends, because I've been lucky enough to surround myself with some of the most amazing people in this world who have PAD and don't deserve it. They deserve a better quality of life. And I want to make sure each and every one of them has that. And in some cases, especially in areas in which there's social health care, it keeps me up at night. It keeps me up every single night, almost in tears, because I can't help them as much as I can help many people here in the U.S.
Because they don't have the options, right? They don't have the options.
If for example, I'm giving you,
hold that thought, Kym, because once again, time always flies when we get on these really great subjects. So, but we're up against the break again. We have one more segment coming up, so we want everybody to stick around. We've got so many more interesting things to talk about that will be empowering for you. Anyway, Kym, we're going to take a short pause. You're listening to Inside the Matrix. We'll be right back in just a little bit, so stay in there with us. Okay, welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Matrix with our special guest, Kym McNicholas. Before the break, we were beginning to touch on a very controversial subject at this point because of our political environment and the insanity that we're experiencing there. And Kym, let's go ahead and expound what you know about socialized medicine.
I know that it's not serving some of the patients that need it most. I'll give you an example. When the inventor of this technology was in the Netherlands, and he was told, hey, there is a patient here. It's perfect for your laser. Get here. We'll do this patient. She's perfect. She has a 100% blockage. And if your laser doesn't work, we have to send it to this woman to amputation. They get in, they fly all the way from the US to the Netherlands to go do this particular procedure. And they're in the middle of what they do in every single procedure, which is what's the name of the patient, what's the date of birth, which leg, to make sure they get the right leg. You know, we've heard those mishaps before.
Oh, yeah.
And when they said the date of birth, the doctor said, whoa, wait a minute. When I saw her, she was, 69. Now she's 70. Missed it like by a day or a week or something. And they had to send her straight to amputation. Oh. Didn't even give her the chance because she aged out and her life no longer mattered.
Oh, my God.
And if you know what happens with amputation, it's a death sentence. You're done within 18 months in many cases if it's a major amputation. And this is why this is so important. An amputation cannot be frontline treatment. We had a patient in Canada that found us, and he was told by multiple doctors in Canada, amputation for both legs was his only option, and to walk until he couldn't walk anymore, and then they would amputate.
Oh,
he drove into Michigan, went to 2 major hospitals, including a university hospital, which I'm sure everyone knows the name of. The doctors there said amputation is the only option. He found us, and we said, we have this one doctor. We're 100% sure that he can do something. He flew out a year ago on Memorial Day weekend. The doctor, on his day off on Memorial Day, brought him in. We even flew in to go watch. And with the laser, they were able to save the first leg. Next day, he came back. They did the other leg. He walked right out of the office hours later. And now, a year later, he is walking 3 to 6 miles a day, even still, with no problems at all. We had a patient over in Scotland. Oh, wonderful man. Oh, my goodness. I adore this man. And he said, I just want to see my son graduate from high school. He had already had one leg amputated in Scotland, and they told him he needed his other leg amputated. Ugh. And we had a doctor who worked in a private hospital in London who said, I'm going to work some magic. If you can get here, I will take care of you. He flew to London, and the doctor was able to get right through at this private hospital. This doctor was so skilled, his hands with a wire and a balloon, beautifully skilled and talented, and worked really hard. And this man not only has seen his son graduate of high school, but he's still, walking one prosthetic on the other leg, but still has his other leg, and he's still walking today, which is so amazing. If they would have amputated, he actually told me, he's like, I don't want to be dead in a year.
And that's usually what happens, huh?
And that's what happens. Now, people here in the U.S. think that we don't have social health care and that it is the way. And granted, there are some really great case scenarios, and especially for a lot of people that really can't afford any basic care. And I think it's critical, especially when you're younger, for preventative care, especially. It's great. Everyone should be able to have some sort of basic need. But in many states, you already do. If you can't afford medical care, California has an amazing program for Medicaid that I was on for a few months in between jobs, and they covered everything, no questions asked. And I have asthma. You know how expensive that could be. Mm-hmm. So, but we have certain HMOs here that I know for a fact do not have the doctors do not have advanced skills to unblock arteries, and they go straight to bypass and amputation, even though it's longer recovery. And for, most, if it's a major amputation, it's a death sentence. And it's sad that these people get locked into an HMO and they don't have any choice. That's like what it is for social health care. You don't have a choice. And you think, yes, I believe that every doctor, honestly, I think that they try to do what's right. They really, really do. But a lot of times they fall upon standard protocols of these hospitals or standard teaching protocols that they have to follow. And so a primary care physician, which is your supposed gatekeeper, I'm sure your whole audience has had, people say, oh my gosh, it's great to have this primary care physician to manage all of your care, and you go to them first and they can manage all of your different doctors and such for you. Worst thing ever, because they're the least knowledgeable, and they're more likely to send you to their golf buddy versus someone that's actually right for you. Exactly. And I'm not kidding. And especially in the South in particular, where amputation rates are the highest, it's eerily the areas that have the extreme highest are the areas that slavery took place so many years ago. Discrimination is real in this particular, in the South, when it comes to healthcare, especially. These people just don't know that they have a choice, and the primary care physician will send these poor people to a general surgeon, even if the hospital actually has an interventional. This is really key. Everyone should write this down. An interventional vascular specialist, an interventional cardiologist, or an interventional radiologist. Title means nothing. You got to look at their skill set and say, can you exhaust all efforts to unblock my arteries in a minimally invasive way? If it's in the legs, are you able to unblock the arteries in the arch of my foot using a basic wire and a balloon? If it's in the heart, are you what's considered a CTO specialist? That means chronic total occlusions, CTO specialist. And don't pay attention, but ask those questions, because guaranteed, if your primary care physician sends you to a general surgeon, that surgeon is going to say no to all of the above. But if your primary care physician sends you to the general surgeon because you have blocked arteries, the general surgeon is going to say, well, I do blocked arteries. I'm going to cut the leg off.
Yeah, that'll solve the problem. We won't have a leg anymore to worry about. That's just so terrible.
They're just doing what they know. That's all they're doing. You could have, for example, at an HMO, like, Kaiser, for example, you can get, and I know this for a fact, that because we were there, where they have a battle between the vascular surgeons, the interventional cardiologists, and the interventional radiologists for patients. And they have to BFF to the primary care physicians to get those referrals. And it's no joke. So you, the patient, no matter what it is, do not go with the exact referral of your primary care physician. You have to do your research. Your primary care physician may not and likely does not know best. They're not skilled in unblocking arteries. They're not going to the advanced conferences for continuing education to learn the new techniques. They don't know which doctor knows the newest techniques and has the newest tools. They don't know that. You need to know that. And if you don't know that, that's why I do what I do, and I do it for free.
That's such an amazing thing. And it's really, from what you're saying, it's even worse when you have a socialized medicine situation. I mean, it's bad enough to what we have right now. We know with the cronyism, with the competing for business, the insurance companies regulating, the standard procedures, all these things are inhibiting our ability to get the best care. But in socialized medicine, which a lot of young people are just thinking that's the greatest thing ever because it's free. Oh, it's free stuff, free education, free medicine. Let's just get free everything, and I won't have to ever work in my life, and won't that be grand? Well, it would be grand if we lived in that kind of a world where everybody had your best interest at heart and everybody cooperated and worked together and we were all kumbaya. If we lived in that kind of a world, that could work and it would be wonderful, but we don't. We don't live in that world. And people are just being naive when they think that this is going to be the best thing because it's even more limited than the system we have, right?
It really is. And they think that they're helping the people of lowest incomes, but they're the people it serves the least. And we have patients that are over in the UK that are the lowest of low priorities. And because they're in the lower income areas, they also have some of the highest problems, chronic illnesses, and they need treated, and they're not taken as a priority. And they get to a certain point in their care, and then the doctors write them off, and they say, well, we have a young person who even could be 5 years younger than you, and we're going to spend our money here to treat that person versus you. We have one of my friends in our group, and I adore her. She is one of the nicest people in the whole world, and it's pissing me off because I can't do anything about it. And she has this one problem, and she has to literally wait 8 months to get this particular test, and she can't even eat. She's not even keeping down food, but she has to wait 8 months to get this particular test. We have
so
another friend of ours, like this one is just horrifying to me. We have another friend of ours that was sent, she has blocked arteries in her aorta and her abdomen. And the doctor said, well, you have this going on and this going on and this going on and this going on. And, it's going to cost a lot. You're going to die anyway, probably in the next 5 years. So it's just not worth us spending our money. So we're just going to tag you. And I'm not kidding. We're tagging you as terminal. She is only in her 50s.
Oh my
She
God.
deserves, it's not just about the longevity. It's about giving people a better quality of life, and everyone deserves that quality of life. And social health care does not consider that. They tell people that we don't care if you have what's called life-limiting claudication in your legs, which is meaning life-limiting pain in your legs. And I'm going to tell you, the pain from peripheral artery disease is the most extraordinary thing you'd ever imagine. And I hate to wish it upon any doctor, but these doctors do not get it. And when they tell these patients that they're not going to be treated in any one of these social healthcare systems, they're not going to be treated until they actually have tissue loss. Now, when you have tissue loss, that means you're destined that even if they did treat you, that you're going to have lifelong pain because you're going to have nerve damage that is irreversible. Whereas if they actually unblocked your arteries sooner, when you told them that you had this pain, it's actually reversible.
Wow.
Standard protocols in these socialist areas are not to help the patient. They don't benefit the patient. They benefit the bottom line. And I'm going to tell you that even in Canada, they don't have the best technology. the companies that I work with don't even sell to Canada because it's not even worth their time, because there's so much red tape. They're not going to buy the technology anyway. Only the private hospitals will.
Mm-hmm. So there's a sort of triage system then that's pretty much everywhere, where they decide who is worthy of getting treatment and who is not, who is worthy of some kind of help to live longer, and who is not, who's disposable.
Yeah. Just as you were saying, I got this message from one of our patients who's heading to the ER, and it's just one after another, just not being served, another hospital system failing one of our friends. It's just over and over and over. You've got to take your healthcare into your own hands. Sad but true, no matter where you are. Don't take no for an answer. Fight to the bitter end. Your life is on the line, and you deserve a better quality of life, no matter what. Don't let them bully you. Find another doctor, find another doctor, find another doctor. And if you don't get anywhere, you call someone like us, and we will step in for you. And I don't care. I'm going to use, and I've even used, I feel like I've been looking for purpose with my journalistic career. And I won that Emmy, and it was like the highest and lowest point in my life. The highest because it was like, wow, I worked my whole life for this. But the lowest, like, well, now what do I do with this? How do I have impact with this?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that now I can actually use that and use that influence to get people to listen, to get people the care they need. That when I go in and I say, hey, doc, Emmy award-winning journalist here, I'm writing this article. I'm putting this out there. I have an audience. I have 250,000, people that are hospital administrators and investors and entrepreneurs and patients. And, it's not going to look good for you. And I am actually, I feel good about that. If that's what my whole career and all the twists and turns led me to, this is what I'm committed to for the rest of my life. It's to save life and limb using whatever power and influence I have, because it's the right thing to do.
I think that's such a beautiful thing, and I commend you for that. It's really, it takes someone of high moral character and, true understanding of what it is to be a human being, to be able to do things like that. And sadly, we have a world of people that are self-serving, who are materialistic, who really just don't give a damn. And it's just rare to find somebody. And I so respect what you're doing. And I think it's amazing that there's people like you out there. And so I urge people, if you want to know more about this, go to thewaytomyheart.org. Now, are you guys a 501c?
Yep, 501c3.
Or C3 organization. So people can actually donate to you as well if they want to support your work, right?
They can. We always appreciate that. Every dime goes to help these patients. We had one patient that was told she had surgery this week, and she got to the pharmacy and couldn't afford the medications. And so we stepped in, and thankfully there were a few people that donated that wanted their money go straight to medications for people in need. And we were able to get her medications ahead of her surgery this week. So that's incredible.
Awesome. Yeah, and I urge people out there, if you're in a position where you can help others and you're wondering how you can do it, this is one way you can do it, and you're going to directly affect people's lives in a big way. Now, one other question before we go. We only have a few minutes left. Are there other treatments available for cardiovascular disease that are maybe like herbal treatments or enzyme treatments or anything like that you've run into that actually work?
Great question, because with my dad's cardiovascular disease, they wanted to put him on statins and all of these drugs. And we had him on it for a month, and it had bad effects. And because of our work with Dr. Hines in finding out, getting to the root cause, what is damaging his arteries, finding out his deficiencies in micronutrients and vitamins, we were able to uncover a really great picture, and we reversed the course of his heart disease, stalled out the progression of the plaque. The doctor actually said to me, his cardiologist said, I've never seen this in my 40 years of practicing. I want to send patients to you because, and I'm even going to call you doctor, because what you have done has been amazing. So it's possible if you have the right supplements, if you have the right diet and the right exercise program, you can take your health in your own hands. One key thing that I would urge everyone to do, one piece of blood work that I find across most of our friends, is they have this MTHFR mutation. It's the mother effer gene, is what I was politely informed by a doctor of what it's called. And it screws up the processing of certain foods in your system, and it leads to damage to your arteries. So if you know you have this mutation, which you can even find out through a 23andMe test, you could just take one bioavailable B vitamin and folate and change the course. If you have diabetes too, that's reversible. Add a little extra psyllium to your diet, flush it on out. It not only slows the absorption of the sugar, but it also, did you know, it'll flush out the extra cholesterol. Most people with cardiovascular disease don't just have a liver production issue, which statins address. They have a cholesterol reabsorption issue. Your HDLs, the good cholesterol, carry those bad cholesterols out of your body. You excrete them through your poop. And so you'll want to move them out faster. So adding a little bit of extra soluble fiber to your diet can help bring down your cholesterol and prevent it from finding trouble inside your arteries. Easy, basic things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And once again, I urge people to go to thewaytomyheart.org. Check out the information that they have there. And if you need help, well, contact them and let them know. Also, if you're in a position to help them financially and help many, many other people, please do so as well. And once again, Kym, we're up against the end of the show. We only have about a minute left here. And we so appreciate what you do, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge with us, because this is an area that few people know about.
They really don't know about it. And the cardiovascular disease remains the number one killer for a reason. It's because people need to take their health in their own hands. Nothing else has worked. We have great organizations out there. They're all focused on research. They're all taking a top-down approach. And this is the first organization really taking a bottoms-up approach and just helping people one by one and making a difference, hopefully every day, in saving life and limb, because every life matters, and every person has a face that deserves to be treated with the ultimate respect and given the best quality of care possible, no matter their income.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Kym. We appreciate you. And once again, everybody, go to thewaytomyheart.org. Until next week, we'll see everybody. Take care, and we'll see you inside the Matrix.
This is Inside the Matrix, hosted by Jimmy Brent.
Who are we talking about?
Jimmy Brent. Live every Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
It is worldwide.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location deep within the neon capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. For more information on the host and the show, please visit InsideTheMatrix.org. That's InsideTheMatrix.org.